Welcome back to the channel. Today we're back on the Datsun. I have a lot of work to do on this thing, but I think what I'm going to start on today is one, finishing up the motor mounts and test fitting them in the engine bay to make sure that the engine sits on the motor mounts exactly where I want it to and that nothing moved after I welded it. The next thing that we're going to work on is marking out and trimming a little bit of this transmission tunnel to fit around that shifter. Stay tuned. We're going to get everything prepped, make a whole bunch of marks. Then the engine and transmission are coming back out. We're gonna start the welding process and get the shifter hole ready to go. In here, you can see that the transmission tunnel of this car has been completely obliterated. The previous owner was swapping a different engine in here and needed a whole bunch of room right up by the firewall. As you can see, we do not need that room. This whole transmission tunnel has to be put back together. The main thing that I'm after right now is trimming this shifter hole right here. See if I can get the light. Trimming the shifter hole so that this shifter will pop up right through the floor. Of course, the light always falls when you don't want it to. So I'm going to set this on there, make sure that the bolt holes line up, and it looks like we're pretty close. This entire shifter flange is actually going to be under the hump. The only thing that's actually going to pop up is this boss right here, or this protrusion, if you will. So what I'm going to do is just kind of mark this off, and then I'm going to look at probably a ½ inch in from that is where this thing is going to pop up. I've got the shifter mocked up in here. Just going to trace around this a little bit just so I have an idea of where that's going to be. It appears we have to take roughly 3/4 of an inch more out of this, but I think what I'm going to do is maybe just, oh yeah, I can cut it out like that. I don't really care if the floor hole's a little bit bigger. I'm going to drill with the corner to the corners here so that it's a nice round cut, and then I'll cut out this little piece here. I may also do, I don't know how well you guys can see that. Sorry if that's a little bit bright. Right here, you can see that the sheet metal actually kind of comes over the shifter hole. So I am actually going to trim this and just kind of straighten this out, kind of like that. This side over here actually looks pretty good. It's not hitting in the way. I might take just a little bit out of right here, maybe cut that back just a little bit. After that, my plan is to, well, okay, here's what I'm thinking. Let me get the light on here so you guys can see what I'm dealing with. This is wiring harness, get the shifter out of the way. So I understand that this looks pretty haggard right now, but I believe that there is enough material here to actually close this whole transmission tunnel back up. That's what I think I'm gonna do. I have an idea. I think what I'm gonna do is weld probably 4 tabs maybe to this side and another 4 tabs to this side, all of which are going to have a 3/8 inch hole. I'm going to shove pieces of threaded rod through the tabs and put a nut on either side. I'm going to use the threaded rod to pinch this whole transmission tunnel back together. So I think that's going to allow me to not have to fabricate the whole transmission tunnel. Now, when we get up here by the firewall, this is going to be a little bit more complicated. Man, did I already wire on this car? Look at this stuff. So, pull this wire out of the way the other direction. The transmission tunnel, I think up to about here, I'll be able to just pinch back together and stitch weld it back up. Now this piece and this piece, I don't think these are just going to fold right back together. There's a considerable chunk missing. And also between the transmission tunnel and the firewall. So in this area right here, I am going to be kind of plating this, right? I'm going to make this whole curved section that mates up with the firewall here in probably 4 pieces. I did just purchase a small sheet metal brake from Harbor Freight. I think that's going to allow us to make this piece by piece. That's where I'm going to stop for now. I have a couple of marks made for the shifter back here. I know that that's dark. I have a couple of marks made for that. Now I need to do some trimming there, and the rest of it is just going to be cut and pieced together with separate pieces of sheet metal. All right, back at it today. Special guest, the other half of Steve 0.0 is here again. We're going to rip the engine out of this car. I already showed you guys what we were measuring the other day. So we're going to pull the whole drivetrain back out and get to some trimming and cutting. And then we're actually going to work on kind of making our own, I think we've decided to make our own transmission tunnel cap piece. Pick back up once we get this engine out of here. so here's where we're at. Basically, what we're gonna do, I'm gonna come at it from the other side. Okay. So, oh yeah. This has to be opened up just a little bit for the shifter on the 240SX transmission to pop through here at the right place. So I took a drill bit, punched 2 pilot holes, and then open it up with a Christmas tree. I'm gonna come in here and cut this with the death wheel to make this a nice rounded opening. What we did is we took a basic measurement of like how big we want the shifter hole to be right here. And then from that line going forward, we took a rough measurement from that location to about where the transmission tunnel kicks up and meets up with the firewall. And so back here, this is 4 inches wide, and up at the front, we're guessing that it's about 12 inches wide, so like up here. So what we're gonna do is make a pattern out of cardboard, and Steve's working on mocking that up right now. We're making a wedge that's 4 inches on one end, 12 inches on the other side, at whatever angle that is. He's working on mocking that up, so what I'm gonna do is come in here with the death wheel and cut all of this straight, or as straight as I can, to give us a wide open area to work with and hopefully make some better measurements. And then once we have the cardboard template made, we'll come in here and fit that loosely and then make whatever adjustments we need from there. So here's what we got going on. Steve was, while I was in there cutting and grinding under the fiberglass blanket fort that I made, he cut this shape out. This is the center line. And by the way, I would just like to make this known. Sorry I'm all sweaty, that mask I wear is hot, but neither of us are sheet metal workers. Neither of us are fabricators. We were doing this grade school style with cardboard and a couple of measurements and a whole lot of guesswork. This is the center line. Our goal is to try to get the top of the transmission tunnel to be flat. So we're gonna break an edge over here, break an edge over there to kind of lift this thing up and give us roughly this shape in the middle here as the flat top piece of the transmission tunnel. I think you said you marked 5 on this edge?
5 to 10.
5 to 10, and then we're gonna add probably an inch on either side so that we can make a 45-degree bend on either side to kind of match this back up with the existing tunnel. We're gonna finish marking this up, and then we're actually gonna bend this piece of cardboard to mimic what we wanna do, and then we'll mock it up on the car and show you how that looks. So, we have our template here. We put a couple temporary bends in it. I'm gonna climb in here, test fit this guy. So, look at that, dude. I think if we break it over like that, we're gonna be almost perfect. We'll have a little bit extra, but I think we can trim to fit. But that looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, I see it's like roughly up to here maybe-ish.
That looks pretty good.
Feels pretty good back here. Yeah, it's a little wide.
A little wide. So we could taper this in then, so leave this where it is, and then bring this point in a 1/2 inch on either side and redraw the line and then break it.
Right.
Okay, let's look at that. So, does everybody see that? Too bad. If not, I will come back and show you when we get this a little closer. Basically, it's perfect already. All right, viewers, check this out. This, man, now it's a little crooked, okay? So it's probably gonna sit something more like that, but check this out. Now, sure, it is gonna need some, you know, some modification, right? It's a little bit, we can make it fit just a little bit better by itself, but that is the beginning of the transmission tunnel cap on the Datsun here. So I think what we might do is trim that ever so slightly, but that is what is going to become the cap on this transmission tunnel. We're going to work this a little bit more, and then I may have to come in here and cut a little bit more, and then we're going to make a plan for how to get the pieces up by the firewall done. We have the transmission tunnel piece up near by the firewall. I trimmed those back. What we're going to do now is begin tack welding this piece in, and I know we've got to do a little bit of moving around the metal here. We're going to get all the surfaces around here quickly flat wheeled, cleaned up, and then we will get this thing kind of massaged in there to fit, and then we'll run some tacks just to hold it in place. That way we can then begin mocking up the piece that is going to cover up the firewall right here. So put you on time lapse and we'll get this all cleaned up.
Think about a time I almost lost you. I know, I was lost too. Had dreams and I lost a few. In flight we enjoyed this view. Floating on the same wing, there's some flight shit. Window seat, knock fee, you're my sidekick. Always wanna run, can't find no one to run with. All these young kids wanna party, screaming come with. But you won't take their advice, you make your own. Came here to live a life, make your own. I'm just being honest, don't need those clones. Got my back, cover it with steel. Might go skydiving with my wheels shining bright, don't know how it feels. Can't feel this wind, but I know that it's real. In flight we enjoy the view. 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 Dig deep to unmask the truth. I'm gone cause of feeling you.
Alright, so here we are. First cover piece of the transmission tunnel is cut, bent, and I began to tack it. I know there's some gaps in here. That's okay. Don't worry about that. It's my problem, not yours. Now we are going to try to mock up the piece to cover up all the way to the firewall. We'll get a cardboard template of that made, and if we can get it cut out and bent and tacked, or you know, at least fit today, that'd be great. If not, even having a template to work off of will save me a ton of time. Once we get that going, that should be a huge chunk of the repair in the inside of the Datsun here. After that, I think I can get back to slamming the engine back in and everything else we have to do on this car. So we'll pick back up when we have a template made for that center piece. All right, so just like with the main piece, the cap piece for the transmission tunnel, this is our first attempt at a plate to go from the cap for the trans tunnel up to the firewall. So we made a template out of cardboard, and we made a couple of lines here where we were going to use this cheapy Harbor Freight brake, which for those of you who might be wanting to try this stuff, this thing is like 70 bucks, and it's pretty easy. You just bolt it down to a bench or something, or you can use clamps. It's a very rudimentary setup, so don't expect greatness, but for the average guy doing fabrication stuff in his garage, this thing works pretty good. We're gonna put the bends in this to the best of our ability and then test fit it in the car. All right, it's a couple days later. Just wanted to show you guys kind of where we ended the other day with the transmission tunnel transition piece back to the firewall. In here, and again, sorry about the shadows. Here is the transition piece that goes to the firewall. And there's the cap piece that goes on top of the transmission tunnel. I do have to adjust this piece a little bit. because it is slightly skewed. So I'm gonna adjust that just a little bit and try to get to where I can maybe actually tack this in, and then I'll get to finishing welding on the cross member. Okay, so let's see. Under here, what I'm gonna do is probably, I think I'm probably gonna mark this right here and trim just a little bit off of that edge. How does that look? So if you look at this from straight on, it's kind of hard to tell. It is angled a little bit. The face of that transition piece is actually angled a little bit to the driver's side. I don't know how much I care about that. I think I'm actually okay with it the way that it is, but I will try one time to trim that. Holy crap, man. Us Northerners do not do well in this shit. It says it's 74 in here, but it is sweatier than two rats going at it in a wool sock. Anyway, here's what I've got. So I've messed with that panel up against the firewall a whole bunch, and actually it looks like, believe it or not, the contour and everything and the bends are all going to come out looking okay. I think it's just the seam that's a little crooked, and I think it is what it is. So that right there for me is workable. I am going to zap that in place, and then I'll show you kind of how I'm going to solve all the little gaps and stuff from the other side. Okay, so what I'm going to do on this side, and I know this all looks haggard and stuff, I plan on fixing all of this. It's going to be okay. But down here, see how we have this lip? Yeah, pretty much anywhere that there's a lip, sheet metal, water can get in there and it can start to rust. So what I'm going to do to kind of make these two pieces permanent, so I'm going to come in here right at the corner and I'm going to nip this with the cutoff wheel on either side, right there, and I'm going to take this piece and just slightly, lightly hammer it up. Take these pieces and lightly hammer them out to match, and then these here I'll do the same thing, just lightly with the hammer, kind of tack this all together, booger weld all this together, and then right here I'll have to cut a little piece to fill this in, not a big deal. Same thing on this side. There's actually a pretty decent gap right here. That's going to be a little bit of hammering from the inside, a little bit of hammering from this side. Same thing right here to get all of this stuff to match up and meet up. That way I can weld it all up. Up here at the top of the firewall, we've got a little bit more stuff to deal with. There's actually a pretty good size hole right here, as there's a tab that I bent back. I'm actually planning on taking this lip right here that was previously hammered. I'm gonna pull that down, smash it back out, and then smash my tab on the inside up over the top to get the two to meet up. And then I'm gonna weld all of this up. That's kind of where we're at now. What I wanna do is really quickly tack these two pieces together so that they don't move. And then we can get a couple of screenshots and then maybe get to the cross member. All right, now I know what you're thinking. Oh, you didn't clean any of this up. That's true. A lot of the stuff here that I have to cut and patch, I am gonna get in there with a wire wheel and grind all that paint off of there so that I have a clean spot to weld to. For today, that's it for that guy. At least it's in place. I can continue cutting and trimming and everything else that has to happen in order to get all this sealed up. I'll finish welding this, and then it's gonna get seam sealer and black paint and carpet over the top, and you'll never see it again. I am gonna quick weld up the cross member. All right, so just to make sure that when I weld these tabs, and actually, I'll get you guys over here. So just to make sure, okay, so just to make sure that when I weld these tabs, that they don't move in or out due to the heat from welding, what I'm gonna do is just quickly assemble the bushing again on this end and get that mocked up in here with a bolt and hold this, not super tight, but hold it tight enough to where it acts as a spacer for these tabs so that they can't move around. So once I have those, Once I put the bushing back together, shove this in here, then I can zap this shut, and then this cross member is ready for a final wire wheel and paint, and then it can go back in the car permanently. There we go. Both sides welded up. Still a little warm. Definitely not going anywhere. Now, I don't know how well you guys are going to be able to see that, but I don't claim to be a welder, but those look pretty good. I think they're definitely going to hold. I'm going to test them one more time with the bushing sleeve to make sure it goes in and out of there okay. If not, I can tweak these a little bit to make it fit. Otherwise, cross member's done, ready for paint, and the trans tunnel is ready for final fit and fabrication, just to seal everything up, patch all the holes. All right, back out here. All right, back out here again on the Datsun. Let's see, still got to paint the cross member and the motor mounts. So I'm going to quick make these brand new, some black spray paint, get them ready to slap back on there. And then I'll finish up trimming, hammering, making some patch pieces and stuff for the transmission tunnel. All right, paint I like to use, same as Vice Grip, D1635, dupe color. Get it at any auto parts store. Looks like I'll have to maybe scuff those motor mounts a little bit. I think the DOM sleeves have like a zinc coating on them. Hit that with a Scotch-Brite, maybe some primer, and try it again. So we'll let this stuff dry and come back to it later. Today what I want to try to do is finish welding up this seam right here along the top of the transmission tunnel. I do have some work to do on the back side, you know, hammering stuff into place. I do want to trim this panel to fit. So there is a little bit of rework to do over here. I have to cut this out and make an actual patch for this. Anybody who's ever done sheet metal stuff, obviously the tighter your fit up, the better. So in this case, because I'm an amateur, I don't do this every day, gaps like this right here, I don't know if you guys can see that gap right there. Right, that gap is a little bit wide. I'm not going to be able to bridge that with my welder, at least not very easily. One of the tips that I've seen is to use a piece of TIG welding rod or filler rod, and you can actually use that, lay it right in the gap there to fill some of that stuff. Now, a gap like this one over here, that is a little excessive, right? I'm probably not going to be able to fill that with just MIG welding wire and a TIG filler rod. So I may actually have to cut this out and make a new patch, or make a little piece maybe for the bottom around here, just to be able to fill that in a little bit nicer. So I'm gonna put you guys on time lapse. I'm gonna do a whole bunch of hammering and forming and maybe a little bit of tacking. I do know that I have to do a little bit of grinding up here just to get that stuff ready for welding. Same thing on the other side. Oops, sorry about the shadow there. Same thing on the other side. So I'm gonna put you guys on time lapse and try to get as much done as I possibly can. I'm running out of time. I'm running out of energy. So let's see what you guys can see. I know the sun is shining in this window right now. Got this whole seam welded up, and I won't show you too close because yes, these welds are not that pretty. I didn't do a great job cleaning this up and whatever. Both sides of the trans tunnel, as well as the seam between the two pieces, is welded up. The firewall is welded up for the most part. There are still some patches I have to cut and make, and I'm gonna do those next time. I have a couple other holes to fill in. Made some progress on the engine bay side. I don't know how well you guys are gonna be able to see this, but this should look a little cleaner than before. I trimmed a little bit of metal out of the way. I hammered some of this metal back and hit this all with a wire wheel. Over here, I did kind of clean up this edge a little bit so it meets up a little nicer. Same thing over here. There is a small overlap. That's fine with me. It is going to help me weld. I may end up trimming a little bit of this piece that overlaps. I'm not sure yet. The engine bay side should look a lot cleaner. Just remember, this transmission tunnel is going to get seam sealer along all the joints, then it's going to get a coat of paint, then it's going to get a coat of rubberized undercoating. This thing is going to be covered in so much goop that it won't matter. Look at this car, right? This thing is never going to be perfect. This is a perfect car for me to learn how to do a lot of this stuff on, and I want you guys to know I am not a professional at all. I'm a guy with a garage and a welder and a cutoff wheel and a plasma cutter and a little bit too much determination sometimes. All right, I think that's where I'm gonna wrap on the Datsun for this week. I don't want this video to get too long. We made huge progress on putting the transmission tunnel back together and getting it welded up. I still have some more work to do on the firewall side, as well as a couple of little patch pieces to put in that were just too difficult to make. Thank you so much to Steve. That guy is a whiz at making cardboard templates for sheet metal stuff. I think I'm gonna call that guy and try to sucker him into doing more of them for me. He won't know that until this video comes out. Without him, this would have taken me so much longer. The engine cross member as well as the motor mounts are outside drying with their second coat of paint. I'm gonna finish those up, and then those can be reinstalled on the car permanently. Hopefully next time we'll get to putting the 280ZX struts and coilovers in the 510. That's a video that I've been wanting to make because I haven't found one on YouTube. Then I can finally show you what I picked out for wheels. Thank you so much, every single person, every one of you that has subscribed, liked, commented, shared. I'm surrounded by a great group of people every single day, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm having a ton of fun. Steve's having a ton of fun. Everybody around us is having a ton of fun with these YouTube videos. Again, thank you. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I'm looking at maybe doing t-shirts soon. Until next time, I love all of you. Thank you so much.